Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 362 of the Juicebox Podcast. Today, I'll be speaking with Kate Hall. Some of you might be thinking, Kate Hall's been on the show before. Actually, that was a different Kate Hall. The first Kate Hall is an Olympic hopeful who has type 1 diabetes. This Kate Hall is a longtime soap opera writer. She's written on As the World Turns, All My Children, The Young and the Restless, and currently, and for quite some time now actually, on General Hospital. Now, General Hospital, I used to sit with my mom every day after school and watch General Hospital with her. I mean, like, legit. I know about Luke and Laura being on the run, the left-handed boy. Don't forget when the Cassidines tried to freeze poor Charles. I saw it all as a child. So when Kate reached out and we were talking, she mentioned she was a writer, but she never said of what. And then I got to know her a little better, and she told me. Kate was grateful for the help that the podcast provided for her daughter who has type 1 diabetes. And as a way to say thank you, she named a character on General Hospital after my daughter. Now, a couple of things here. I joke about it once in a while. I'm trying to get one of you to name a baby after me. Hasn't happened yet, but character on General Hospital, pretty cool. I very much enjoyed it, and so did Arden. I'm going to play a clip from General Hospital at the end of the show so that you can hear it. But for now, let's get into the story. So Kate's a D-mom of a little girl with type 1 diabetes. She's actually also married to a man who has type 1. Both stories are interesting. They're all in here. Plus, we're going to learn a little bit about writing for soap operas. Real quick, couple things before we start. Of course, nothing you hear on the Juicebox Podcast should be considered advice, medical or otherwise. Please always consult a physician before making changes to your healthcare plan. Please, please, please do that. And this episode of the Juicebox Podcast is sponsored by Omnipod and Dexcom. Find out more about the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor at dexcom.com/juicebox. And you can get a free, no-obligation demo of the Omnipod sent right to your door by going to myomnipod.com/juicebox. If you need help remembering those links to Dexcom and Omnipod, or for any of the sponsors of the show, look right there in the show notes of your podcast player, or go to juiceboxpodcast.com. Oh, I was singing along with the Skype ring, and you almost caught me. I'm so sorry. I have to get my energy up somehow for this. I recorded 3 of these this week.
Oh my gosh. That's a lot.
Okay, don't you worry. Listen, a couple of times while we're talking,
yes,
my soap opera geek is going to come out once or twice. You have to jam it back in if it gets crazy.
Okay, I'll do my best.
I just had a jingle go through my head, right? Like, I can't think of the first part of it, right? But it was Love in the Afternoon on Ryan's Hope. But there was a beginning part that I can't remember.
See, I never watched Ryan's Hope.
I didn't either. I'm just telling you, this was like an ad that would run in between shows.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I don't know either. I just, okay.
Sure, Scott. Sure you didn't watch Ryan's Hope.
Of course I didn't. That's ridiculous. I was not like a little fat kid after school watching soap operas with my mom.
I love that. We need you guys.
Oh my gosh. All right. We should start with real talking, because I just recorded the whole thing. You'll probably be mortified to find out that this is how your episode started.
Excellent. Okay.
So just go ahead and introduce yourself, and we'll start talking.
Okay, I am Kate Hall, and I have a 10-year-old daughter, Dylan, with type 1 diabetes, and my husband, Peter, also has type 1 diabetes.
And Kate, you're not the first Kate Hall to be on the podcast, right?
I do, yes. I heard that episode. That was so funny.
We have a lot of Mormons, and now a
lot of Kate Halls.
That's exactly right. You understand. Okay, so how did we meet? I feel like I know. Like, I feel like you reached out to say, was yours one of the, like, I need help emails, or was yours a thank you email? I can't remember.
I was all of the above. I started with a thank you. I think I messaged you on Instagram, maybe, just thanking you for all that you do and how much you'd been helping our family. And then I reached out wanting to be on the podcast. And then I reached out for help after that.
And I remember talking on the phone with you. because I feel like I embarrassed myself. Do you feel like I embarrassed myself on that phone call?
No. Oh, no. I actually was so grateful that we'd already spoken because it made me a little bit less nervous to do this today.
Okay.
So I'm like, well, we've already chatted. Yes. No, we did speak on the phone. It was funny because you were like, can you give me a call? And I'm like, sure. And then the next thing you're like, what's your number? I'll call you. I'm like, you're probably very smart, not just giving random people your phone number.
You know what? What if I just called you instead? No. But so you don't remember me embarrassing myself. This is just
no.
Okay, so
what do you think you embarrassed yourself with?
Not what I think. That's what I know. I at some point discussed having written a book, not understanding that you're a professional writer who's won daytime Grammys.
Okay.
Daytime Emmys. Excuse me.
I have never written a book and probably could not. So they are completely different genres. And yeah, that's crazy. That's nothing to be embarrassed about.
My book's not really a book. It's I don't know. It's loosely connected blog posts like that are longer than regular. Like I don't have. So ready?
You were also on the Today Show, something I have not ever done and will never do.
I was on Katie Couric, not the Today Show.
Oh, well, okay.
I did do NPR, though. That was really cool.
Oh, that is cool.
It was very cool. Yeah. It was cool to have
You're way more famous than I am.
Yeah, it was very cool to have the NPR guy in his deep NPR voice that he did not look like he was putting on. It just felt like it came out of him, And and he's holding my book, and it's dog-eared. It has, like, stickies in it. And all I could think the whole time I sat there was, oh, my God, I think he really read that.
Right. Read it closely enough to put sticky notes in it.
Well, because Katie Couric's producer read it and then told her about it. So it was my expectation that maybe NPR guy didn't either. But anyway, somebody pays you to write.
Yes.
Right. I was in the right place at the right time. That's a different situation. You know what I mean? So I don't know. I just found myself embarrassed because I mentioned that I'd written a book. And it's not something I normally mention either, which, by the way, now people are listening. It's like, oh, this guy probably runs around all the time going, have you seen my book? I don't think there are times I bump into an old box of those books in the basement, and it actually makes me think, I wrote that book. Yeah. Like it really feels like that. The thing about books is you can't really make any money off of them unless you're famous. So it's a lot of time for
not much reward.
Yeah, the return is that you wrote a book, which is cool. Like I have to admit, in like certain scenarios, it's a selling point for me. Like I hear people say that all the time. Like they'll have me out to speak, and they're like, "Oh, Scott wrote a book," and I'm like, "It's not about what I'm here to talk about." But okay, it would be it would be like if I rode Motorcycles for Dummies and I was speaking at a diabetes event. They're like, "Oh, he's an author,"
Yeah, it just gives you like street cred. You wrote a book.
It does, and by the way, it's published. Like by a publisher. Like I didn't self-publish it, not to like poo on anybody who has, but a publisher.
No, it's legit. You should be proud of it.
All right, Kate. People have already hung up the podcast now.
They're done.
I'm gonna have to like edit out half of that so they'll even stay in this. Are we saying your child's name? Did we say it?
Yes, I said it. Dylan.
Okay. Dylan is 11.
She is 10.
10. She
just turned 10.
And how old was she when she was diagnosed?
9. It was like a week before her, a week after her birthday. So she had just turned 9. So we're just over a year.
I'm remembering, this is why I pushed you off so far for your recording. Because I wanted you to I might not have told you this. This could be.
You did not tell me
right, Kate, I was manipulating you like a puppet. You just don't realize. But no, I would have told you if it would have occurred to me. But I wanted you to be with it longer before we talked about it.
Oh, okay.
Makes sense, right?
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, plus, you were nice, so it wasn't weird to say, "Hey, you can record in December, right?"
Right.
A year ago.
You're like, I know it sounds far out, but how's the beginning of December?
Hey,
sure.
Don't give away the language from the email because it's the same email that goes to everybody.
Oh, sorry. I mean, mine said something totally different.
But no, I can't. I had to automate some of this. I was really losing my life to writing emails and responding to stuff, and which is really cool. But it was taking up more time, and I was suddenly not editing the podcast anymore. And I was like, I think they'll stop listening if there's no podcast. So I was
suspect. I was like, I don't know. I mean, he keeps saying that he is talking to all these people who reach out to him. Like, that just can't be true. And then I email you and you're like, do you have time to chat? I'm like, oh my God, it's real. Like, he really does it. It's so crazy.
So I'm going to tell you something that's going to absolutely flip you out. We started recording at 10 a.m. and at 9:59, I hung up the phone with the person I was talking to.
Oh, wow.
Because she had a confusion about something and I didn't want to. It just seems like, I don't know, it's so much easier to say than it is to type. And
yeah.
I think I actually believe that I'm pretty good at explaining diabetes in writing, but it takes a lot of time and you can miss nuance and things like that. So
no, totally.
It's easier that way. Again, let me preface that by saying, or not preface it, but let me postscript that by saying, please don't call me. I'm very busy and I don't have time. No, but seriously, I like helping people.
Well, obviously, I mean, oh my gosh, I just can't even tell you how helpful you have been to us.
Well, Kate, you better be able to tell me because that's why you're on
right.
the podcast.
Right. Okay, I will find the words.
All right. First of all, your soap opera royalty. Tell me a little bit about what your mom and dad did in the world of soaps.
Okay, so they met on the soap opera Search for Tomorrow, and they played Scott and Kathy, and they got married on TV before they got married in real life. So then later in life, my mom switched over to the writing side, so I'm really following in her footsteps. But yeah, I come by the soap opera world naturally.
Now, if I had your mom here and I said to her, what made you switch to writing? Would she say something like, I had said it so many times, I knew what they wanted me to say? Or is it?
No, you know what? She would probably correct me on this. I tell people, and maybe I'm wrong, I think she did it just because it's a much easier schedule when you have children. Oh. And it's just like, I work from home. I can work in my pajamas. I have no meetings to go to. It's great. I can still like be a mom and get my kids off to school, but like I have this job that I love. It's just sort of perfect for when you're trying to raise a family. For me.
Have you ever been on screen? Have you ever stuck yourself in the background or something like that?
No, I dream about it though. I have dreams like a couple times a month where I'm like at the studio for whatever reason, which I'm never at the studio, and, it's kind of like they need somebody. I'm like, oh, I'll do it, and all of a sudden I like turn into this actor extraordinaire and I have like a main role now on the show, which of course that would happen. No, I am a writer, I think, because like I didn't have the chops to be an actor. I would have loved to. I'm too self-conscious. I would take rejection horribly. And like, that's what an actor's life is. It's people telling you, you're not right for this. I would have been bad at it. So this is me getting to like flex that muscle, but from behind the scenes.
I didn't understand all that. And I can't believe I'm going to bring up the book, but when I'm laughing at myself, when I finished writing and I turned in my work, I got, they got back to me and they had made an edit, which was super interesting to watch someone else edit your work, because when I reread it, I couldn't figure out what they cut out of it, which I thought was fascinating. I was like, I don't even know what you did. Like, that's amazing, And we had, obviously, the publisher and I had long conversations over many, a year or more during the writing process and the business side of it and everything.
Hello?
As soon as the book came back, and she sent me back her edit, she followed up with a phone call and she's like, we're going to get you.
I was like, what is that? Is that a kid?
And I was like, yeah, like I was just like, of course you are, because I wrote a book. And she's like, no, we don't do this for most authors. She's like, you can talk. And I was like, what? She goes, most people who can write are not good at being the out front face of what they're writing. Mm-hmm. And I said, that's true. And she's like, 100% true. And I think you just kind of said the same thing there, which is what made me think about it. She's like, people who are usually good writers are not great speakers. And I thought, no kidding, right? And she's like, no, really. She's like, we're going to get you stuff. And then, by the way, most of the cool stuff I did. They didn't do. Like,
right.
They were always like, do this magazine article. I was like, this is the cool stuff you were talking about? I was like, how do I get on TV? Like, I want to be on the radio. I don't want to. And actually, it's funny. I did a podcast the first time, and they used the audio from that podcast to show to other people. They're like, listen, it was very, very interesting. Tony Rose, I was on his podcast, which folded a long, long time ago. Every day when I'm making this podcast, I try to prove Tony wrong. Tony had it wasn't a podcast as much, I guess it was, but it was like Blog Talk Radio. That was a thing for a while where people just recorded like over telephones, and it sounded like that too, but he tried to talk about diabetes on his, and his is long defunct. And I contacted him in 2015 when I was starting to do this. And I said, do you have any advice? I'd take any advice you had. And he goes, well, enjoy it while it lasts, because you'll run out of things to say eventually. And I laughed and I said, oh, I bet you I won't.
I'll take that bet.
Scott thinks he could talk forever, just so you know. But anyway, I never forgot that he said that, because every once in a while I think of it. I'm like, I got to keep it fresh and new and think of different ways to go, because I don't want to get into a scenario where I feel like, oh, I've already said that. So,
right.
Yeah.
No, totally.
So how do you stop that from happening on something like you're on General Hospital right now? Something that's, how long has that show been running?
Oh God, 50, like I want to say like 57 years or something.
So do you have any ability to make something happen that hasn't happened 5 times already? Like, how do you do that?
I mean, I would say most stories are recycled in some way or another.
Mm-hmm.
But, I don't come up with the story. I am a script writer. So I am told, this is what is going to happen. And then I write all the dialogue for my show, like the day that I'm assigned.
So are you choosing direction? Like, would you?
No.
No?
I mean, like the direction of the story,
Yeah.
like what? No, I like flesh it out through the dialogue. I can change some things, if I don't like how they got from point A to point B, I can change the middle part, but the end of the day, the tag of the day has to be the tag of the day unless I'm told otherwise.
So that you don't run into, like, what it makes me feel like these current Star Wars movies where they talked about, like, J.J. Abrams came out with his reboot, and then Rian Johnson came up, and sort of like, if you watch the second one, you could see in that script where the guy was like, I don't agree with the stuff that was said in the first script, and I'm going to try to move them away from that with my writing. So you don't have the ability to do that. They give you, like, Robert Scorpio is going to show up here, and by the end of it, this person need to be going towards this bar for this reason, and you get them there. Is that the idea?
Yes. And I do. Yeah. And all the dialogue and the stage directions and if they're just sitting around doing nothing, having a conversation, I'll try to come up with something they can do. And, with soaps, it's like a lot. I feel like what I'm most proud of is making, either like the absurd sound normal,
mm-hmm.
Like something that somebody would actually say. And also you're doing a lot of like recapping and kind of like, you're like, oh God, I feel like they had this conversation, 2 scripts ago. And so it's trying to keep things fresh and not always sound like you're saying the same thing. And so I feel like that's sort of the biggest challenge.
Then there's a name for that in television, right? In writing for television, is it, what do they say? Like captain exposition? Like, what is that idea when an actor comes on and explains to you what's about to happen?
Yes, exposition. Yeah. It's like expository dialogue.
Right.
Yeah.
When a guy just walks into the scene and says, so you mean if we push this button, that mountain's going to blow up? And,
right.
And you think
exactly.
back, like no one would say that in a real scenario. But since they only have 45 minutes to explain this to me, we got to,
right.
That's how you leap over 15 minutes of dialogue that would draw that out.
Right.
So is it sort of the opposite of, like, so how do you play against the idea as like a professional writer? Because what do they say, right? Like, don't explain something you can show.
Mm-hmm.
But you're explaining it in lieu of showing it.
Well,
no, yes.
Sometimes.
Explain it to me.
I mean, it's in different scenarios. It just depends what you're going for. But yeah, ideally you would like to show it and not say it. But like there are just some situations where, you gotta do it. And it's funny, there's some actors who are just better at it than others. And we're like, okay, give that to so-and-so because he is really good at just like whipping out this expository dialogue, but like making it sound pretty normal. And he like gets it done quickly. And so you also like, you have certain people in your head who like you would assign that job to.
Oh, there are some people who aren't as good at it. It sounds more like an ad coming out of their mouth. Like,
yeah. Exactly. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's interesting. Do you know the actors personally, or do you have that feeling just from watching them on television?
I know some of them personally. I get intel on them from like my editor, because I'm on the phone with her like usually at least once a week. She can tell me like, yeah, this person probably won't be as comfortable with this as that person would, or whatever it is.
Don't give them the heavy lifting. Give it to this person.
Yes, exactly.
Interesting. And that's something that's very cool.
Yeah.
I feel like we're learning a lot here. Let me ask you this. Do you watch the show?
I try to. I am embarrassingly behind right now. It's an hour, and like at the end of the day, it's not like my husband wants to sit and, he would, I guess, if I like mandated it, but we watch other stuff on TV. We're not gonna like sit down, and I'm not gonna like press General Hospital. I usually, if I'm like working out in my house or something and I'm on a treadmill, I'll put it on, or I just don't have a ton of time to watch it. But I wish I did, because it's really helpful even now, even after writing for as long as I have. We get new characters all the time, and the only way to really get their voices and figure out who they are is to watch it. Me just reading words on a page isn't going to help me.
There is a lot to unpack here. Here's why. First of all, I know women have it tough, but if a man said, if I mandated it about someone to his wife, like that would not fly. It came out of your mouth so easily. You're like, yeah, he'd do it if I told him to. And everyone listening is like, oh yeah, absolutely. If this was,
I mean more. I
don't care what you meant. I'm talking about what you said.
But because it's my job, like he would feel bad being like, ugh, I'm not watching General Hospital because I like work there, and I didn't mean it. Like I can just order him around.
Yeah. Okay. And so then, and the other thing is that there are times where I pop the podcast in. I want to make sure it sounds right through headphones. I want to make sure it sounds right if you just flop your phone on the countertop, if you're running it through a speaker. I try to stay on top of that. I try to make sure that, there's connecting phrases that I use that I try not to. Obviously, you're trying to avoid. So I try to avoid, but I use so a lot to get me to my next thought.
Right.
I sort of let it go because nothing is scripted here. So I am really thinking along with the conversation, try to cut myself a little bit of a break, but I try to listen to it, so that I can figure out what it is. And my wife will be like, are you listening to your own podcast? And I was like, well, yeah, but I'm just trying to listen to that. And she's like, oh, sure you are. And then this morning I did it with the episode that went up today, which is the second trimester of Samantha's pregnancy. Like, I don't know if you...
Oh, yeah, I saw that. It popped up on my phone.
And so I'm listening to it, and I'm by myself in my house making my breakfast, and the absolutely douchiest thing happened. I made myself laugh. And so I'm laughing in my kitchen at something I said on the podcast, and it made me feel like a dope. Like, I was just like, how can this have... Like,
no.
I knew I was going to say that. No, I don't know. It seems like it might be like a mental illness. I'm actually putting the ad here because while I was recording with Kate, my computer crashed, so this is just a natural break in the conversation. I'm going to make this quick for you. Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. See the speed and direction that blood sugar is moving with the Dexcom G6. This is incredibly important. This information coming back from the Dexcom is going to inform, it's going to supercharge your ability to understand how insulin is impacting blood sugars, how food is impacting blood sugars, how food impacts insulin, how insulin impacts food. It's going to show you so much. You are going to be able to make decisions unlike your wildest dreams could desire. Is that English? I think it is. Unlike your wildest dreams could desire. Well, there's a better way to say that. But what I'm saying is when you see this information, you begin to make better decisions about your type 1 diabetes. These decisions lead to better time in range. They can lead to lower A1Cs. So much. When you can stop those spikes and stop a low before they happen, just sort of find a way to keep your blood sugar in that zone that you're looking for, it's huge. Dexcom.com/juicebox. Go find out more about it right now. The Dexcom G6 is just a huge tool in my daughter's life with type 1 diabetes. I do not believe that her A1C and all the other things that are important would be where they are without the Dexcom. I'm not even mentioning share and follow. I should, by the way. Dexcom, like the wearer, can share their information with up to 10 followers. That's for iPhone or Android. Imagine your grandmother, school nurse, mother, father, and anybody you want can see your blood sugar. And if you're an adult, your best friend, friend at work, your sister, your brother, anyone, even your mom still. Like when you're an adult, you still need your mom, right? Well, with the Dexcom G6, you can share your information with others if you want to. If you act right now and go to myomnipod.com/juicebox, the links are right there in your show notes. Don't worry. They're also at juiceboxpodcast.com if you can't remember. Anyway, if you go to myomnipod.com/juicebox, Omnipod will send you a free, no obligation demo of the Omnipod tubeless insulin pump right now, today. They'll get it right to your house. When you get it, you can try it on and wear it to see if you like it, to see if it's comfortable, if it'll fit into your life. And if it will, you just keep going with the process. And if you don't like it, it's cool. Omnipod they don't mind. They don't mind sending it to you for you to find out that it's not for you. But just imagine if it is for you. What a leap it's going to be to wear your insulin pump without tubing, to not have to shoot insulin anymore through needles, to be able to lord power over your basal insulin. I know those of you doing MDI don't think about that, but just imagine getting the exact amount of basal insulin that you want every hour. Not just shooting it once a day and hoping it works for 24 hours till you shoot it again. Actually being able to control your basal insulin, to be able to extend out your boluses. Get extended boluses are so great for Chinese food and pizza and foods like that. Don't even get me started. You can do that with the Omnipod. You can also set temp basal increases and decreases for moments when you need a little more or a little less. Just think of it. Think of the possibilities. A little temp basal decrease going into some activity keeps you from getting low, and you get to wear your pump the whole time because it's tubeless and it's not going to be in the way. It's astounding. Trust me. At least try the demo. myomnipod.com/juicebox, dexcom.com/juicebox, links in your show notes, links at juiceboxpodcast.com. Let's get back to Kate.
Hello?
Hey, let's hear it for Max Autosave. It is amazing.
Was that my fault?
No, my computer just crashed. So the truth is, I am using a 5-year-old computer that I need to replace. And I made a decision this year to upgrade sound equipment over computer equipment. And this is the third crash I've had in a year, and I haven't had one before that. So I think this thing's shot. I might have to go out on a limb and replace the computer.
Bummer.
Yeah. So all that fat cash I'm making off the podcast going.
You should have done it this weekend, one of those, Cyber Monday deals or something.
Don't worry, I'm thinking about maybe still doing it after that. Anyway, we didn't really lose anything, but I had asked you about whether you watch the show because I wanted to ask you if while you're doing that, if the dialogue runs ahead in your brain. Like, do you know what people are about to say? Is that weird? Do you ever find yourself mouthing along with it or going, oh, they're about to say this?
No, because, it airs almost 3 months after I've written it. So I'm a little, I'm so far ahead in my writing that I'm like, it's more like a fun reminder. Like, oh, yeah, that was a fun show. Yeah.
So now that doesn't surprise me at all because I'll get emails all the time like, oh, I was listening to the show today and you said this and thank you. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I recorded that 6 months ago.
Right.
And it went up today and it's really, I can't believe I asked you that. Now that you said it, I'm like, well, of course you don't, because you're writing ahead.
Right.
Yeah, that's so cool. Okay. So, all right, let's get to the real meat of this, this meal. Dylan now had diabetes for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
When you were diagnosed, tell me a little bit about what happened.
It was her well visit, just her yearly annual visit. And we went in and they said, she's grown 2 inches, but it says she hasn't gained any weight in the entire year. So they're like, oh, the scale must be wrong. We'll go do another one. We went to another scale. It said the same thing. And I could tell the doctor was like, huh. But then she was just Dylan seemed like otherwise healthy. And she was going to have us come back for a weight check in a month or two or something. And then in the back of my head, Pete and I had been on vacation. And when we left our kids with our nanny, who was amazing. And when we came back, she said, there was this one night where Dylan went to the bathroom like 6 times, she said, when she woke up in the morning. And, I was like, huh, that set off like mild alarm bells for me. But on the way to the doctor, I said, Dylan, has that happened again? Have you had to get up a lot? And she was like, no. And, don't say anything to the doctor. It's embarrassing. I was like, okay. But then, once I saw the concern in her doctor's face, I said, there is one thing, and I told her what I just told you. And she said, okay. So they did a urine test. There was glucose in Dylan's urine. And then they wanted to do a finger prick, but they didn't have a meter in the office. So they had to go somewhere else to another nearby doctor's office, get it, bring it back. And that was like the worst, sitting in the waiting room. Like, I just wanted to get it over with so badly. And so they did the finger prick, and she was like 300 and something. And just because of Pete, I knew obviously that is not a normal blood sugar. And so I was like, I think you have what daddy has. And I thought that would sort of make her be calm about it, like, because she sees her father every day living a completely normal and healthy life. And she like flipped out, like screaming and crying. And I mean, it was terrible. And yeah, so there was no hospital stay for us. They just like sent us to the endocrinologist in like the local one that they usually recommend. And we went to see her, and they did all like the official tests. And then she got like her A1C and everything. And they officially said, yes, you have diabetes.
Well, had you ever considered before it happened that it might?
Not once. And I feel so naive about that, but nobody ever said that. So my husband was diagnosed after we were married. He was in his early 30s, and everybody just kind of made it sound like he'd been struck by lightning. And no pediatrician ever told me it was like there was a risk that our kids would get it. Right. His doctor didn't say, hey, like, when you have children, just be on the lookout. Like, nobody ever said it. And now, knowing what I know, I can't believe we weren't on the lookout for it. Mm-hmm. But we weren't. Like, we were blindsided. I called him at work to tell him what was happening. He like was horrified and jumped on a train and came out. And I remember them, like, I still like cry when I think about it. Then we were in the parking lot of like a pizza place, because when we went to the doctor, they're doing all these tests, we're waiting on them. So she said, go get whatever you want for lunch. And, of course we're like, what do you want? Pizza. And Pete was like, wait, she's eating pizza? I'm like, it's fine. I don't know. They told us it's fine. It's fine. Just meet us there. And he gets out of the car, and they just like ran to each other crying. And it was super emotional. And he had a lot of guilt, which of course he shouldn't have, but he felt like, oh my God, I gave this to her. And it was really sad, but it's also since then, I think, connected them in a very special way.
In that moment when they kind of embraced and they were crying, did you have a different, like, I don't know if you had the bandwidth at that moment or not, but did you suddenly see diabetes for your husband differently than you had seen it prior?
Oh, 100%. I didn't even follow him on Dexcom. like he was just totally just doing this by himself. And yes, it's changed dramatically how I've looked at it for him, and my empathy. And I mean, not that I wasn't empathetic before, of course I was, but it's like a whole new level now.
Yeah, well, you could just tell him to be.
I'm going to mandate that he just like raises blood sugar when he's low.
Pull it together, but no. I'm super interested in what you said, because it just feels like that it's possible that because of the lead up, and that he was diagnosed when he was, and that you guys got married, you weren't married when you were 18 or something like that.
No.
So that it's possible that for the first time in that moment, you saw how it impacts him. And have you spoken to him since then about, I mean, he's obviously, I don't want to say hiding, but there was a part of his life he wasn't sharing, right? Like about the diabetes. Did that make you feel strangely, or do you understand the privacy? Is he as private now as he was then, etc.?
I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say he was never hiding anything. It was just sort of, I didn't have that sense of, other than like the first low he ever had, and I was pregnant and I was sleeping in another room because he was snoring. And of course, that was just so annoying. And in the middle of the night, he like crawled into where I was and was like, I need juice. And I want to say I ran, but I probably waddled down the stairs and got, a cup of orange juice and came back up, and he like couldn't even bring it to his mouth. And I had to like feed it to him. And like, that was really scary. Obviously it was our first experience with a low, and he had to like email his doctor the next day and be like, this happened to me last night. What was that? And the doctor was like, oh, you just had your first low. Like we didn't know a lot going into this, and he was misdiagnosed at the beginning and it was all confusing. But other than that, needing to bring him something like that, I don't know. I didn't feel like it was this like team effort, which is what I feel like it is now.
Well, that's really cool. How long did Pete have diabetes before it repeated with Dylan? I was just trying to say Pete and repeat, just so you're wondering.
Pete and repeat. Yeah, well, that's so funny because my sister married a Peter and my father is Peter. So it's Pete, repeat, and three-peat is what we call them.
If Arden was here, she would say Peter's a euphemism for penis. And
oh, all right. I hadn't thought about it that way.
She's a delightful girl. Actually, by the time yours goes up, I'll say this here because it won't be teasing by then, but Arden and I are going to sit down and do a short series on the podcast of me trying to like pass ideas on to her.
Oh, that's awesome.
There was a lot of talking that got done to doing that. And I think I committed to paying her, if I'm not mistaken. But true to
now you're going to have to. Well, you just said it.
I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure I had to move her along with some cash. So for all you people out there who, when I say like, if I was you, I'd pay them. Like people are always like, my son doesn't want to wear a pump. And I'm like, how old is he? And they're like, oh, he's 8. I was like, $50 would look huge to an 8-year-old, right? Like pay him off, like get him moving. And if they don't
like that, or candy.
Yeah. And if they don't like it after that, right on, like, but you get them to try it. So I said to Arden, look, we're at this weird spot in your, in your life. You've had diabetes forever. And your dad's the guy on that podcast. And so it doesn't impact you the way it does other people. And she'd be the first one to say that there are days that go by where she doesn't think about having diabetes really. Like it's not in the forefront of her mind.
Right.
But there's no doubt that I'm making calculations that she doesn't understand. And I don't mean mathematical. I mean, bigger ideas. Like she had Chinese food last night that presented a problem to me, and I stayed ahead of it. Like I kept her blood sugar at like 180. That was like a Chinese food failure was like 180 for 3 hours. And, everyone listening now is like, no, a Chinese food failure is 400 for 6 hours.
Right. I was that sounds pretty good.
And you're like, huh, really? And I'm just like, oh, we've botched this, but she wouldn't know in this moment how to manage through those couple of hours. Like she wouldn't know what to do. And
is that a whole different ballgame now that you're looping?
Yeah, no, yes, sort of. Like it's harder to correct with loop because loop doesn't want you to. But it's actually,
but there's ways around it.
There's ways around it. And the last version of Loop that's out now is way better. Like it handles food way better. It doesn't cut basil off like it used to. And it's just, it's an updated version of it.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah. So it's easier for me to correct with it. And I've learned how to like open the loop to crush a high, to close it again. Like I've figured out some things, but at the same
time. Why don't people just like open it during the day and then close it for sleeping?
Because there are still going to be times where you have insulin needs changing during the day, and the loop will get in front of those things.
It'll get in front of it. Okay.
And so as best it can, it's right around food. If you mess up the bolus for food, then it's just, it's a little more difficult to get back on top of. But I really am figuring it out. It's just that Arden wouldn't know the next level of that, right? And
that's going to be so great. She'll eat those up with a spoon.
Yeah, well, I'll tell Arden that to see if it makes her feel differently about it, because it's going to be me and her, and at times it's going to be me, her, and her friend Yanni, who is a kid who Arden met online who has diabetes, and we're going to do a round robin thing if the technology holds up, which I think it will, and so that all three of us are going to talk about, because Arden and Yanni are in different situations. Like Arden's management is more stable than Yanni's is, and Yanni's looking to get to that stability. So I think the information would impact both of them the same way, even though they're coming from two different places. So I have my fingers crossed. I practiced on some kids who weren't mine in Kansas City a couple weeks ago.
How'd that go?
Yeah, I was like, here's other people's children. We'll practice on them. Come on over here. And but seriously, they took the information really well. They took notes. They were paying attention. It was really interesting. So,
that's so cool.
Yeah. So this podcast,
I can't wait.
Thank you. It's just it's a walk through my experience, and this is going to be the next part of my experience. So we're going to try to bring it to the show. We'll see. I should knock on wood or something like that. Now that I've said this, that she'll back out and be like, I'm not doing that. But she really does. We need to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And so
why not
she doesn't
make it useful for everybody, right?
Exactly. So that's our goal. So, okay. So you had this thing, what I feel like is probably the most emotional moment of your life, I'm imagining. And this whole sort of thing, comes together for your husband. I get the part about feeling like you gave it to her. Is he been able to shake that over time, or does that stick with him, do you think?
Yes, I think he has. I think it took a little while, but, just had to keep telling him, you didn't give it to her any more than somebody gave it to you. Like, it's just crap luck for both of you.
I know Kelly has that feeling sometimes because Kelly has hypothyroidism. So there's an endocrine issue with Kelly, and it seems like there's on the female side of Kelly's family, they all seem to have a little bit of an endocrine thing. And I think that makes Kelly feel like she gave Arden diabetes, which she, of course, intellectually knows is not true, but hard to shake.
I get it. I would probably feel the same way.
Yeah. Go back to Dylan exploding in the doctor's office. Did you just let it happen? I'm assuming you consoled her, but did you just let her have her moment?
Yeah, I let her have her moment. I kept trying to explain. I did not do, you always talk about crying in the shower, crying behind closed doors. I was just 100% crying, and that scared her. And I remember saying to her, I am not crying because I'm scared. I know you are going to be fine. I'm crying because I'm, really bummed out that this is happening to you, but it's going to be okay. She kept asking me if she was going to die. And I, maybe she was asking me that before they came in with the meter, when she was a little confused. And that's when I said, no, you're going to be fine, but you might have what daddy has. And then when it was confirmed, she looked at the doctor and said, do I have diabetes? And her doctor said, yes, Dylan, I think you do. And she screamed. Yeah. I was very surprised by it, but yeah, I let her do it and just hugged her, and, we were leaving, and then I just couldn't deal anymore. And I turned back, and I remember hugging the nurse, and it was nice. I hadn't seen her again because she was pregnant. So she's been on maternity leave, and I saw her again for the first time at Dylan's well checkup this year. And, I said, I don't know if you remember, but last year, and she just cut me off, and she was like, oh, I remember. And that was a nice little moment to see her again and have it be under much better circumstances.
She's like, oh, I remember your child screaming like a monkey in the jungle.
I remember. Yeah. I remember you losing your you-know-what all over this office. Yeah.
Look, you cried, the kids screamed. Am I remembering this right? Yeah. Oh, yeah. We call it Blue Monday here, just in case you're wondering. We're all
that was aware. Something else. Yeah. Then they just send you on your way. I'm like, wait, what? Just drive to this other town and go see this person. I'm like, okay.
You're very likely going to be fine. Goodbye. Yeah. Geez. Well, I'll tell you, I have to commiserate with her a little bit because I was in a hotel room while my son was recruiting for baseball. So he was in high school trying to get into college. And we were away one weekend when I found out Arden had hypothyroidism. And I believe that I had to stop myself from punching a hole in the wall of the hotel room.
Oh, I
was
bet.
just so angry that and the way it felt to me was like, how could it be two things?
Oh yeah.
Like, how could she get two things? You know, like, which is how it really struck me in my heart. I was like, it's enough, right? She's doing okay with this. Why would you, and I'm not religious. I don't believe in, I don't feel that way. It's not like I was blaming a higher power. I just thought this feels wrong, and it held me together. I think that my son was I think he was in the bathroom, and I didn't want to I didn't want to lose myself in front of him, so I just kind of held myself together. Or I think I would have just run through the door into the adjoining room and been like, "Hi, good news! My daughter has hypothyroidism to go with her type 1 diabetes. Isn't this great?" Really
God,
terrible. Now, do you have other children?
I do. I have two other daughters, both younger. Dylan's my oldest.
Okay.
Then I have a daughter, Sawyer, who is 8, and my daughter, Reese, who is 4.
Who better to pick names than a television writer for children? And they say that's a hard thing to do, but if you've got the skill, you have it, and you apparently do. Does Peter had any input on the children's names, or did you mandate what they were going to be? How did you?
No mandating on that. We came to it together. Yeah, I just love sort of the kind of the boy names for girls. I just think it's cute.
Yeah. I know Arden is only, I think the last time I looked, it's really only a few thousand, maybe 5,000 to 9,000 people in America are named Arden, and over half of them are men. So it's not a very common name, and it's not a common girl's name, but I just loved it when I saw it. I was like, this is
I like
great.
it too. It's a good one.
I was like, here we go. Well, you liked it so much that you named a character on General Hospital.
I sure did.
I really appreciate that. Thank you. That was a lot of fun. So I
was bummed out. Her first scene was supposed to be with Laura, of Luke and Laura, but I guess Jeannie Francis wasn't available that day or something, so they had to cut her out of the show.
I looked up and I just thought, oh my God, Tristan Rogers is still on this television show? That's
what I know. He left for a while, but now he's back.
I feel like he might be thinking that too. I felt like he might have been like, am I still doing this?
Am I still here?
But no, it was really cool. Thank you. I'm interested a little bit in how the podcast found you and what it did or didn't do for you in the beginning.
How did I? You know what? I think I started following diabetes stuff on Instagram, and then somebody posted similar to what I did when their kid got a good A1C back, and said couldn't have done it without. And I was like, what's this? What's the Juicebox podcast? And so I clicked on it and I started listening. And I remember I was on a train into the city for. It doesn't matter. Who cares? And detail is not important.
That was the storyteller in you right there. You're like, it does not matter why I was on a train into the city.
That is expository dialogue, and nobody needs to know. And I was listening. I'm texting Pete and saying, you have to listen to this. It's so good. And I was walking through Grand Central, and it was the one where you were talking about shoving the juice box through the fence at her softball game, and she just took it down in one gulp, and I'm crying because to me that just was so beautiful and brave, and I wanted that for Dylan. And so I just started binging it right off the bat, and it just gave me the courage to finally stop staring at the Dexcom and watching the spike to 300 every morning and being like, why does this keep happening? Why does this keep happening? I don't understand. And instead, just do something about it. Like you always say, doesn't matter why it's happening. Just give her more insulin.
Right.
And it was the most freeing thing. And I mean, I've just eaten up everything that I hear on it. And it's helped us so much.
Oh, I'm glad.
I'm nowhere near where you are, but I'm doing it. I tell people I have 2 full-time jobs. I write for General Hospital and I manage Dylan's diabetes.
I thought you were going to say, and I listen to a podcast.
Well, that's true too. Yeah. And I talk about this man like he's my friend. Well, Scott says, and everybody's like, you don't know Scott. I'm like, well,
you do now. Who tells you that?
I
Your
do
family?
now. Yes.
No, You
Like
know me.
Dylan will be like, Mom, you don't even know him. I'm like, well, I'm going to. So you just watch out.
Just say, I talk to him on the phone. I know him better than you do. Honestly, talk to me more today than most of the people I know. So that's fine. I'm actually, interestingly enough, as you're talking about kind of being tough and going through things, and I remember that moment like kind of so vividly when she just kind of like took that juice and went right back out there, and it was so cool.
Oh, so good. And I
Um,
needed to hear that. Like we were right in the, days after this had happened. And it gave me hope at the beginning it gave me hope before the tools.
yeah.
Like I just needed, and I wanted so desperately to hear other parents because, just it made me feel less alone. And also just like we could do it, they're doing it. We could do it too.
Of course you can. I mean, honestly, seriously, I mean this, if I can do it, literally anybody can, because there's really just generally nothing special about me. It's not like I knew something first or I have someone helping me, or, do you know what I mean? Like, it's just these ideas, they kind of coalesce and you can make sense of them after a while. We're actually in the middle of something right this second that, is one of those other tough things. Like while you were telling me that story about listening to the podcast, I was texting Arden, hey, you got to eat faster. What are you doing? And so she's had a fairly large lunch. So it was a pretty big bolus. And it looks to me like she got there, sat down, and probably didn't start eating right away.
Right.
So she's like 60 diagonal down right now. And I'm just like, hey, it's all the food in? She goes, I'm eating. And I was like, do it faster. And that was pretty much it. And, in 5 minutes, and I told her, I'm like, leave your phone out because, if this gets sideways, you're going to probably need some juice and you're not going to be paying attention because she's eating. So right now she's the first day on a new sensor. So in my heart, if she was here, I would think test because I don't think she's as low as it says she is. I think the food's ahead of it a little bit, and we'll wait it out a little because we're not scared and she's eating. But, that she's not here, it's still a little different. Like it changes what you're going to do a little bit, like,
oh yeah.
Yeah, there could be a moment in here where I'm like, just have a little like juice, but I know she's not going to need it. So now I'm fighting the urge to say she needs the juice and kind of watching it happen. Like I say I don't say anything on this podcast that I'm not doing in my own life. Like, so sometimes you just really do have to have the balls to wait a second.
Yeah, I do that. I text someone like, it's going to hit. Like you ate lunch. It's all there. It's going to hit you. Like just wait 1 second because what'll happen if you treat it. And you're also, I try to remember too, like the Dexcom is behind, right? So the food could have already hit and she might already be on her way up. I just don't see it yet.
Yeah, you just got to wait for one more reading. And then if that reading goes the wrong way, you go, ooh, I was wrong about that. And go ahead and have some of that juice now or whatever you use as your fast acting, kind of treatment stuff. No, absolutely. I'm thrilled, first of all, that the podcast is valuable for you. I really am. I end up emailing that to a lot of people, that sentence, and I hope that it doesn't sound trite, but I really am thrilled that it did something for you. Anything.
It's a total game changer. Like I can't imagine had I not found it.
You're very nice. It's very kind. Thank you. I mean that. It's a touching thing. It really is. Well, it's hard to know what to say. It's still strange to me to hear from people like that. Not that it's not, I don't want to sound like an ass. It's not unexpected. Like I've heard other people say it. It's just, it's not something you get accustomed to hearing. It feels,
well, special. It's the truth.
You're very nice. It feels special every time someone says it, I guess is.
Well, that's good.
Yeah,
that's nice.
Yeah. What are your using technology? What are you managing with?
Yeah, we are Dexcom and Omnipod.
And enjoying it so far?
Oh yeah. It's amazing.
What does your husband use?
He is just the Dexcom, and he does injections. Interestingly, like he's an interesting case. So when he was first misdiagnosed as type 2, so he was on, what is it, metformin? Is that what it is? Mm-hmm. For like a while, and it was just awful and defeating. And he would, wake up in the morning and I'd be there like holding my breath while he tested his blood sugar, and it would be high, and he wouldn't have eaten a carb in, like he never had carbs. Like once he was diagnosed, he cut carbs completely out of his life. And finally he was correctly diagnosed. But I think he kind of got it in his head, or maybe it was phrased to him in such a way that it was sort of like, if you get on like the fast acting insulin, like the insulin with meals, kind of like you've given in. Like you can do this on your own with food and exercise. And if you have to go to the insulin, like then like, oh, well, like diabetes got you type of thing.
Okay.
And so he just took one injection of, he doesn't take Lantus, but you know, whatever the similar insulin is, the long acting.
Levemir?
Yeah, Levemir, that's what he takes. And it wasn't until Dylan was diagnosed. So we're talking like 8 years of him just through diet. Like
8 years?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Oh, okay. He was really misdiagnosed.
Oh, no. I mean, they knew he had type 1 for all that time. I meant he went 8 years just on one long-acting shot a day and no fast-acting.
Okay.
We didn't even have any. Like, nobody ever even prescribed him any insulin, like fast-acting insulin.
Was that working? Was his A1C?
Yeah.
It was working.
His A1C was fantastic, like in the 5s, always.
Wow. Okay. Like a long honeymoon.
Yeah, well, he just didn't eat any carbs. Ever.
Ever. What was he eating?
Like salads and chicken and vegetables and meat and like no carbs. Like he went from having sushi rolls to like just sashimi. Luckily he was never really a dessert person, so that part wasn't hard for him, but like we just didn't order pizza anymore, and we, you know, made zoodles instead of noodles, and like he just didn't eat carbs.
Okay.
So anytime we'd go out to dinner, I'm like, I am having all the pasta, because like we never cooked any carbs at home, and I never got to eat that stuff anymore.
And did that like that kind of went through everybody? Like you were sort of a low carb family at that point?
Oh no, the kids were like carb maniacs, and I ate carbs just like not for dinner when I was with him, but like I certainly ate carbs for breakfast and lunch and stuff.
Oh, I see. Just not in front of
No,
him.
it was just him. Yeah. And then after we were on like an airplane home from, I think we had been skiing in Utah, and we're on the plane home, and he had this horrible like accident on the slopes where this guy who didn't know how to ski just like careened right into Pete and like, you know, bent his pole, and the lenses of his goggles popped out. Like it was a very hard hit, but They were both wearing helmets, so that was good. But I think like something got really shaken up in his body, and his blood sugar on the ride home on the plane was like through the roof to the point where his meter was just saying high. Yeah. And so when we got off the plane, he texted his doctor, and that was the first time that he'd ever been prescribed fast acting. The doctor said, okay, you need to go pick this up and give yourself a shot. And then that just sat in the fridge forever. I mean, he never really used it. And then when Dylan got diagnosed, he sort of realized, oh, like fast acting insulin isn't a weakness. It's just what you do to help you eat food like everybody else. So now he does take fast acting insulin, and he, you know, can have sushi rolls again if he wants to, and a slice of pizza if he wants to. He still eats relatively low carb anyway, but
not just strictly anymore.
Yes, not strictly anymore.
Wow, that's interesting. That's such a interesting path. And how has that affected? Well, I guess let me ask this first. You and Dylan, like, is that the chain of like care? Is Pete involved with Dylan, or is it you and her?
He is involved for sure. I mean, at the beginning, it was so nice to have somebody who, like, I mean, now it's just, I could do it in my sleep. But at the beginning, like, the meter was very, like, overwhelming to me. Like, I'd never tested Pete's blood sugar. He just did that. So I'd never used one before, and all the steps. It was nice to have somebody know exactly what they were doing. He knew how to give an injection. He knew how to put on a Dexcom. Like, that was so nice to have somebody already like knowing the ropes of everything. Yeah. But in terms of her care, it just makes more sense. I mean, I'm packing the lunch. Like, I know what's in it. I'm here if need be. I mean, he stays out of it completely all day, and I just text with Dylan. Mm-hmm. But if we're all home on the weekend, like, he'll certainly if he's making breakfast, he'll, bolus her. And so he's definitely involved, but I'm like the first person, I guess, in the chain of command.
Do you follow his Dexcom now?
I do. Yep.
Is that just, do you think now a function of having seen Dylan's, it just would feel weird not to know his?
Yes. And also it made me realize like I could be very helpful sometimes. I mean, if he is out like working in the yard or something and I notice it's a precipitous drop and he's not going to get the low alarm yet, but I can see where it's going, I'll just like run out with a glucose tab and be like, you're going to need this. And sometimes I'm really nice about it. And then there are other times at night where I've been up with Dylan like 3 times and then his alarms start going off. And I'm like, oh, you've got to be kidding me. And I like throw a glucose tab at him. I'm like, take this. Why aren't you waking up to your alarms? I'm like, I can't deal with you too. So, I can be like really helpful and a great wife. And then I can also be not so nice about it. But I do, I give him the sugar. I give him the glucose tab. It's just how I do it.
In fairness, last night, I think I heard Kelly say to me, I think Arden's CGM's going off and you're not hearing it. And I was like, yeah, because I'm sleeping, but I hear what you're saying. So, and she was just like, it was like bouncing a little bit. Like it was just going under 70 and then coming back again. And like, she was just kind of like, she was riding along that line. It was like 75 and then it was 69 and then beep, beep, beep. And then right back up again. Like it was doing that. And I'm saying to Kelly, I'm like, it's a newer CGM. It's okay. And she's like, just go look. And I was like, I really think it's all right. Okay. So I went and tested her and she was actually like 78. And I was like, see, it's okay. Like I said, I was sleeping, but thank goodness for Kelly, because those alarms, you get numb to them eventually.
And I incorporate them into my dream. So then the alarm is just the sound of a car honking on the street. Like I fight it. My body fights it. It's like, no, I don't want to wake up.
I fell asleep last night. I was trying to stay awake, right, for a little bit to just get Arden's blood sugar right where I thought it needed a little bump, and I was making sure the bump worked before I went to bed. So I fell asleep listening to a different podcast than my own. And I woke up realizing that the people in the podcast were in my dream, that there was like, we were having this whole adventure together. It was
it's amazing.
It was really weird, but I know how those alarms end up, because you're right. It's like you're beep, beep, beep. And like, you realize later, like that was like a truck in your dream was backing up and it was the Dexcom alarm or something like that. And yeah, it's a weird life we all have.
The weird life. And Pete never wakes up. So I silence his phone. Otherwise I have 2 phones alarming, like at kind of like sort of the same time, but not really. And they're staggered and it's really annoying.
Well, that's actually super interesting, right? Because you see his lows differently than you see hers, right? Like,
in what respect?
Well, it does it seem like a more immediate need because she's a child, or because she's your child, or? Oh,
well, definitely because she's not. I at least know Pete's getting those alarms. He, knows what to do, and with Dylan, it's like I have to catch it and tell her what to do. So yeah, I see them very differently. But I will check in and just be like, Pete, are you eating? And just shoot him a quick, just to make sure if I see it going really low. Or he'll be like, yeah, I tested, I'm not that low, I'm actually whatever. And but yeah, it definitely feels more urgent with Dylan.
Here's my Sophie's choice, right? They're both in exactly the same situation and they need care. Dylan first.
Yes. Right?
That's for all guys out there who aren't married yet. Just so you know. Okay? Like there's going to be a moment where you're just relegated to what's left over. Just so you're aware. That's all.
I'll be real quick and I'll come right back. But
I would do the same thing. I would, if we were on a raft and it was going under and somebody had to go over, I'd nudge Kelly off before one of the kids. Like, you'll be all right, swim. Before one of the kids. Yeah, it is a real weird feeling. You don't recognize it right until you have a kid, but your spouse, no matter how much you love them, is really just a guy you met, right? And your kids are
right. Yeah, it's true.
There's
it's
another
a different...
Pete somewhere, but Dylan's Dylan. Not that I'm not trying to say, you're like, don't get me divorced, buddy. I'm just trying to be funny. But seriously, there's a real interesting, like I see it more like if I get a text, right, or something comes up on my phone and I go to look at it, there's this horrible thing that happens in our house. It's very small, but it's not small. I get fixated on what I see. Like if I'm being texted or if it's Arden's blood sugar or something like that, I don't realize that Kelly's standing 4 feet away thinking, is everything okay?
Right.
And so I finish what I'm doing and Kelly's like, what is it? And I'm a boy. So I'm like, look, I can either explain it to you or take care of it. I'm not able to do both at the same time. So I need to finish what I'm doing. But by the time I'm done, even if it takes 20 seconds, I can sometimes see that it makes her physically uncomfortable.
She's nervous. Yeah.
And she's worried for Arden, or Cole, even if it's a text message, I think in the back of her head, she's like, that's it. He died, right? Like it finally happened. You know what I mean? Like I've been worried since he was alive. And
right.
Like, no, it's fine. Like everything's fine. And she's not a worrier. It's just in that moment. Like it's, like you feel like there's information there and you have to act. And I always lean towards
the acting.
The kid. Yeah.
So, yeah.
What are you going to do?
You need to work on multitasking. Be like, it's okay. It's Arden, but she's fine while you're texting her.
Yeah. You're not wrong. And that seems completely doable. It's just, it doesn't. And I see how mad she is when it's over. She's like, you couldn't have just told me. And I'm like, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's just, I was going to be done in a second. And she's like, I think it's because I make faces when I read too. And she infers from my faces. She's like, you looked worried. And I was like, I did? Like, I wasn't. Like, just, I don't know. So, the dentist wants to know if you're coming for your cleaning on Friday. I was just, just typing C in there, It's actually interesting now that, hold on. Arden's blood sugar looks lower than it is.
She tested?
Yeah, she tested and everything's fine and she's 100% fine. But my wife just texted me like, do you have Arden? And so that means that her blood sugar's been a little lower for a little, like looking lower on the CGM than it is. But my wife's finally like, all right, listen, you're not killing my kid, are you? Like that was that. It was like, you have Arden, right? And I'm like, oh yeah.
I get those texts too. Do you see Dylan? You see Dylan, right? Do you see Dylan? Like, I got her.
Yeah. While Kate's thinking, oh, I'm just the girl you met. I see what's going on here.
Yeah, exactly.
You're delightful. Did you know that about yourself?
It's always nice to hear.
Delightful. You're conversational. You can hold up your end of the conversation. This is very nice.
I'm an anomaly. I'm a writer who can talk, I guess.
I guess so. I find you didn't make me work hard at all today, which I appreciate. And we still got out really cool information. But I don't feel like we not talk about anything you wanted to talk about?
I don't think so.
No. How is Dylan doing overall? Like, how would you characterize her health and her well-being?
She's doing great. She is like the same happy, enthusiastic kid, which is just awesome. Like I don't feel like she thinks about diabetes very often. It's like, I don't know, you probably feel the same way. It's like a gift you can give them, to take it on for them so they can just be a normal kid. And so far it's working. I, live in fear of like puberty and all that stuff, but hopefully we'll get through it okay.
I mean, you'll have to, right? And you will. It's just more, I mean, again, I can't give away the secrets too much or people will stop listening, but it's really just more insulin.
Yeah.
When you need it and when you don't. And you'll start to figure it out. There's a weird rhythm to it. Like you're used to thinking of diabetes in the form of a day. And you have to start thinking about the days in forms of weeks, like around periods a little bit. And then once you can find that, I almost said flow. Anyway, better word than that for this scenario. Once you find that rhythm, even that's not right? But yeah, you know what I mean? Like once you can find that, it's like, oh, this is the week where you're going to need more insulin. This is the week where you're going to need less insulin. This is the week where it's not going to act weird, but it might get funky once in a while. And you just sort of, and then there's that 1 week where it doesn't impact you and everything goes back, but you learn how to like bounce between them real effortlessly I'm trying to learn that, I guess.
Right.
And it's doing mostly okay. It's just when you don't notice because you're not the person. Like, right, it's not like I have like, there's not like an alarm that goes off in my head when Arden's period starts or when she begins to ovulate or something like that. It's not like I get a message,
Right.
you know, so I have to like see what's happening. And then I think, oh, that's this. And
That's this.
you know,
It's, oh, right. It's this week. And yeah.
but I'm telling you, the real trick is going to be to get everything that you're going to accumulate over these next 6-7 years, right? And figure out a way to put it into context for a person living with diabetes, because you're going to have a very special set of skills as a caregiver that I don't think are going to one-to-one transfer. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's the thing I'm starting to work through now, and why I want to have Arden on the podcast and stuff, because there's what I know how to do. There's what impacts me so that I can react to it, and then living with it's going to be completely different. But I think there's a way to transfer what I know into a person who has diabetes. And I'm going to put Arden on that table, and I'm going to yank her up outside until the lightning hits her. And I'm going to try to make her, you know, try to turn her into a Frankenstein version of my ideas in her life. And
it's interesting too, because it's almost like you have to sort of make them care as much, you know, like make it be as important to them, their health, as it is to us. Like, I just don't, you know, I just imagine like a lazy teenager who just doesn't feel like dealing. And I'm like, no, you are going to have to deal. Like,
100%. Right now, my mom is like 76 years old somewhere. She's more worried about me than I am.
Right.
Yeah. You know, and so you're always going to have that over, you know what I mean? Like, isn't it weird how our minds work? Like, you know, she's your daughter, but to her, she's just her. And, you know, not everything doesn't feel as important or even connected. You are less connected to yourself than you are to your kids.
Right.
You know, like you don't have that same feeling of responsibility. She wasn't there when she came out and you were like, oh my God, it's my job to keep that thing alive. Like, she didn't have any of those experiences. You know what I mean?
I used to be like the biggest hypochondriac and, you know, always worried, like thinking I was going to get sick or this was going to happen to me or that. And once I had kids, that all of that energy just transferred.
Yeah, you don't care about yourself at all.
You don't care anymore. Yeah. Exactly.
I had an emotional conversation with my wife the other day about what it feels like to kind of care for Arden and be the one person that I cried through, because I realized I really only care about my kids. I've stopped caring about myself. And, you know, it's not that I don't take care of myself, but like you come to that realization, like that if I were to get hit by a truck right now, my only regret would be that I wouldn't be able to help my kids more.
Right.
Like, that's a really weird feeling to have. And your kids don't have that feeling about themselves. You know,
no.
My daughter doesn't, yours isn't going to. So I think of it as my job, right, in this next phase of the podcast, to figure out how to take all this cool stuff that we all understand as caregivers or adults who are listening who have found a way to, you know, combine it into who they are during the day. And I have to figure out how to explain that to my kid. Like, so that I feel like is the next step. But I will get it all worked out way before your kid gets older. Don't worry about it.
That's what I'm counting on.
Are you?
I'm like, all right, yes, please. And like technology, I'm like, well, maybe it won't be as difficult because it'll be more sort of streamlined and easier than it is now.
I think that's a sincere possibility. Like, I really do. But I still think that there's the nuance, right? That around the scenarios and situations that they're going to need to understand how to like employ that technology. And
totally.
What do you do when the technology, you know, fails on you for some reason? You know, how do you handle that part? And some of it's going to be, they're just going to have it happen to them, you know, and that's going to be hard for you to see.
Right. But it's really the only way to learn. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
It is. So it's all going to be fine as long as I stay alive. Like, is that what you're telling me, that the pressure's on me right now? Your daughter will be okay if I can keep making this podcast?
Yes.
Well, I don't
and
feel any pressure at all.
Please convince Arden to do that series with you, because I think that will be amazing.
Good. No, I think she's going to. I really do. I bought the equipment that makes it possible for me to record 2 voices. So at this point, I am pot committed on that. And we'll see what happens. Well, I really appreciate you being on and doing this. Did this live up to your expectations, or was it a huge letdown?
No, it was great. It was a lot of fun. Good. Thanks for letting me come on. I basically bribed you by getting your daughter's name on TV. So thanks.
I just want to say that's probably true. Get my kid's name on television, you do get to come on the podcast. But you were booked before that, right?
No.
No?
I said, well, yes, yes, I was booked. But I think it was like part of the,
It was part of that conversation.
like part of the package a little bit.
I have one last question for you if you have a minute. Do you feel pressure to incorporate diabetes into the show?
Oh, thank you for bringing this up. Oh my God. Okay. So there's a character on General Hospital. His name is Lucas. He's Carly's, like Sonny and Carly. You probably haven't watched in a long time.
Well,
Anyway.
I haven't, and you still think I don't know who those people are. Of course I know.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So, or he's Bobby and Tony's son, Lucas, Lucas Jones. And so I've been writing for this show for like 8 years. And I am getting my assignment and I look through it and I see that Bobby Spencer, they're giving her type 2 diabetes and she's having a conversation with her son. And, he's like, Mom, how can you not know how serious this is? Like with my type 1. And I was like, well, I'm sorry. Like, wait, what? Like this character has diabetes and I have been writing for 8 years and like had no idea because nobody ever talks about it.
Right.
So this actor, poor man, I have alarms going off all the time now when he's in conversations with his husband. I have people talking about carrying glucose tabs around. I have him saying, I took insulin, but I didn't get a chance to finish my breakfast. So I'm writing it in every chance I can get, and the show is being great about leaving it in there. I'm hoping they're liking the sort of realistic approach. Like obviously it'll be the first thing that gets cut if the show is long or something, but so far it's made it in there.
That's very cool. But now you got to get like a device on him somehow, right? That would be
I do. He wears a glucose monitor. Not that we've seen it, but we've heard it. Like we've heard his Dexcom go off.
Oh, no kidding. Do they know that?
Mm-hmm.
That's so cool.
I don't know if the actor has any idea what's happening. I think he just like says what's written there. I'm not sure he really understands it, but he's doing it. So that's good.
That's very interesting. I wonder what it's like that's interesting. You're making me wonder like how much he thinks about it or doesn't, or he's just saying the words, but
I know. Yeah. I would like to, if I ever meet him, I'll ask him and explain why all of a sudden he's talking about his diabetes when he hasn't done that for years and years.
Do you feel that pressure come from community, or you're pretty much you're like an Instagram person, right? Pretty much.
Yeah, I'm on Twitter. That's more like Twitter is my like soap opera persona, and right. Instagram is just me.
Well, Arden's blood sugar's good, by the way. She's 65, diagonal up. Everything's fine. She was hanging right at that 60th version for a while. Everything's good. I didn't want people to wonder as the episode stopped, but I think we maybe pre-bolused a couple minutes too early is what I'm seeing as I'm looking at the graph. Like I even realized when she was like, lunch is soon. I remember looking and thinking, that seems 4 or 5 minutes early, but that probably won't be a problem. But it kind of was, but fixed. No big deal. Just stick the juice through the fence, drink the juice, keep going.
That's right.
That's very cool. Well, I really appreciate you sharing all this. This went in more directions than I expected, actually. Your husband's story, it really fascinated me. So I think it was cool that you were able to share all of that. I appreciate it.
Oh, well, good. Well, thanks for letting me share it.
Of course. Huge thanks to Kate for coming on the show and talking about being the mother and wife of someone with type 1 diabetes, and for having a really cool job and putting my daughter in General Hospital, which I'll play for you in just a second. Thanks also to Dexcom and Omnipod for sponsoring this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Get yourself a free no-obligation demo of the Omnipod today at myomnipod.com/juicebox. And you're definitely going to want to go to dexcom.com/juicebox to learn all about the Dexcom G6 continuous glucose monitor. Links to all of the sponsors are at juiceboxpodcast.com or right there in the show notes of the podcast player that you're listening with. All right, ready? There's 2 little clips here. One is just a short blurb. You'll hear a couple of guys talking, then it'll go into the blurb with Arden's name, and then there'll be a little like kind of scrub sound, and then it'll go to the next one, which is a little longer. It was very cool hearing my daughter's name on General Hospital, because I am not kidding you. I sat for countless afternoons with my mom on the sofa watching GH, and I'm not embarrassed. Not even a little bit.
ADA Arden here will be asking the questions.
DA Scorpio is a strong presence.
Thank you.
Allegations against the defendant.
Objection is sustained. Jury will disregard the defendant's speculation with regards to Ms. McCall. Ms. Soto?
No further questions, Your Honor.
Ms. Arden, your witness.
You stated that everyone within dawn of day is equal. But that's actually not true, is it? Some are more equal than others. Can you explain how the trust operates?
There's some video of that audio. Video of the audio? Is video of the audio a way to talk? Well, there's some video of that audio. I guess the video from that audio. Or the video that audio is from. Yeah. The video that audio is from is available at juiceboxpodcast.com on the page for the episode of this podcast. I feel like I've been very clear, and I don't know why you're confused, if you're confused. But I'm certainly, I guess by now you guys have listened long enough to know that if I'm doing this later at night, this is how this ends up going, and it's kind of late right now. So anyway, I'm sorry, but I need to go to sleep. So I'll see you soon with another episode of the Juicebox Podcast. Do you have an absolutely fantastic diabetes doctor, nurse practitioner, or anything, a nutritionist, somebody you use who's making your life better with type 1 diabetes? If you do, just know that not everyone gets a great doctor, but they could. If you go to juiceboxdocs.com, you can add your fantastic physician or practitioner to an ever-growing list of listener. I'm going to have a stroke here. I can't think of a word. Listener, it's not suggested. What's the word when you want to, oh my God. I'm not going to stop this recording till I think of it. Recommended. To an ever-growing list of listener-recommended doctors, physicians, practitioners, people who are helping them with their type 1 diabetes. So if you need a great doc, check out juiceboxdocs.com. And if you have one, you can go to that same link to email me your doctor. Just look at the format of how the information's there. That's the information I need about your great doc. Okay, I think you've gotten a pretty good look into how long my day is. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. See, I can't talk. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of the Juicebox Podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please take the time to leave a wonderful rating and review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. I feel like this went well.